All right, we're back with Project Fierce, a place where we're going to have some real talk about issues facing the trans community and our trans siblings and nibblings of color, presented by Channel Q and A2 Music Productions. And I think we really should start our show out with understanding and hearing our stories from us. So I got my girl Peppermint, the trailblazing actress, singer, reality star, activist who continues to defy the limitations. Peppermint, what's going on, sis?
Well,
how you doing?
Honey, I am fabulous. I am so good to be with you again.
Yeah, again, because we were just kicking back, watching Barbershop on your show, girl, talking about, listen, because that caught me off guard. Listen, because I know the essence of what we were doing was, just kind of having fun watching a movie and kind of kikiing about the movie. But, I can't help but be in a place these days when I'm just, a lot of the stuff that we used to watch wouldn't fly by today, and some of the stuff, the misogyny, the homophobia, the transphobia, obviously how far do you think we have to go when it comes to representation of Black LGBTQ folks within Black entertainment?
I think we have a long way to go. I think we're just getting to the point now where we're I don't want to say enough, but more than just a few people recognize some of the terminology and feel maybe comfortable with saying it. I remember it was like 2 years ago, a year or two ago, wasn't that long ago, when many people in and out of the community, LGBTQIA community, couldn't even say the letters LGBTQ or LGBTQIA.
They were fumbling over the acronym, girl. They were fumbling.
Honey, what about the rights? What about, we got so much more to do. Y'all better get these. If y'all can say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, y'all can say LGBTQIA. Let's go. And so, yeah. But I think we're just getting to the point now where, I'm surprised to hear some people that I wouldn't normally, I don't think I've ever heard speak out on LGBTQ equality or anything, but hear them reference the community with the acronym. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so that just shows me that at least they're moving ahead. Now that's the lowest bar to set. So it shows we do have further to go. And I know that for every, Candy on Pose, for every one of the folks like Janet and Laverne Cox and so many more, there's still stories that are being created to this day or moments in media that are kind of cringeworthy or problematic. And so I do think there's further to go,
Well, speaking of Candy on Pose, Candy had a friend, an acquaintance named Euphoria. I don't know if people, before, I'm not talking about the show. I'm talking about the street walking.
Hello.
Euphoria. I have to tell you, that experience with you on set was so amazing for me. And the reason why it was amazing for me is because I'm a girl who grew up doing the bar circuit, doing drag shows. And again, even though I don't consider myself when I was performing, I was a drag queen, but people would get it so mixed up and conflate a drag queen with a trans person. So I was so excited to see you take up this space on Pose as an actor, as a trans woman playing a trans role. But I was also very inspired by your presence in the RuPaul's Drag Race space, because I know that had to be difficult, especially when you're a trans woman dealing with dysphoria in a space around men like that identify as men. How has that journey been for you, going from RuPaul's Drag Race to being seen as a trans woman, not just in a costume?
It's been just the occurrence of that has been liberating. It's been cleansing. It's been great to be recognized. And it is kind of, I think I have to admit that just like the whole notion of a trans person doing drag, it should be simple, but it's confusing to a lot of people. And even, there's moments where I'm like, well, do I present, like, do I do something in drag here? Or I'm, like, could I get by with not going in drag? And what is drag? Like those questions have gone through my head. But to have the opportunity to work as just myself and as a trans woman, and know that the life experiences that I've had are valued in certain spaces. When I did Head Over Heels on Broadway, they wanted to know what someone who was trans might say or do, or what that thought. And I know that, if I hadn't been cast in that role, there's a likelihood that another trans person might not have been cast, because that's not who they were looking for originally. And then Absolutely. It would have been a bunch
of cast what, Mila Jam right after you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She didn't do the Broadway production, but Mila did do a production on a regional production on the West Coast. And wow. and the thing that's so interesting is they were not trying to cast they weren't trying to cast, the role wasn't written as a trans person. Then it evolved, and they were seeing I know that there's other girls from RuPaul's Drag Race who don't necessarily identify as trans, who were seen for the role. And obviously they ended up settling on me. Not settling. They ended up becoming lucky.
Come on. They ended up getting lucky enough to get Peppermint.
But my point is that, this obviously the show closed, all of Broadway closed. Special props to those who work in live theater and live entertainment, who aren't working during this time. But, since then, we've been contacted, by schools, and colleges are doing the show, high schools are doing the show. And there's conversations and opportunities for people in the original cast to find out about that, maybe there's an opportunity for us to talk and give our advice on how to do the show and things like that. And there's so many people groups that reached out and said, we really, we don't know what to do because we want to do the show, but we don't have someone, we don't have access to any of the students that we know are trans. And the fact that they're obviously, they can't force somebody, out of the closet, or, you might not find a trans person who wants to be in that role. But right. The fact that it's the first thing on their mind when it comes to that role means that I made an impact.
You changed the game. You changed the game.
And so that's
let me ask you a double-sided question here. As a Black trans woman, where do you find your support and love? And on the opposite side of that, where do you feel like the love is lacking and the support is lacking?
Girl, you got time.
Yes, we do, girl. Yes.
Look, I'd be remiss if I didn't say my family, although they haven't been 100% with the program the way that I would like them to be all the time. They definitely did get with the program.
Did they change a little bit once you popped up on TV?
Oh, yeah, honey, it's this is what I said. The family only deals in milestones, right? And so all the little things beforehand that you're like trying to do, or I'm trying to write this thing, or I'm trying to get together 3 pennies to get this thing. They're like, what? They're like, we don't understand it. They only understand I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm on Broadway, I'm the president. Like those are the 4 things family are like, oh, okay, we're with it, And so it kind of took long for them. And when I was on TV, then it finally kind of snapped in terms of just my embracing my queerness, I would say. And then later, obviously, I came out to them as trans before I was on Drag Race, but then everything else started to come into place. And I remember there was like a moment where I was working really hard to kind of cater to them, giving them extra time and patience, which I think is important to do when it comes to recognizing, my pronouns, for example. And my cousin said to me, I was like, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. He's like, girl, just go ahead and do it. The family will adjust. And that was kind of permission for me to be like, you know what, I'm just going to live my life and they will catch up to me if they love me. And they did. And so my family is a big support. The next is, I think it's really what's been life-saving for me, for sure, has been a close group of other trans women, other Black trans women who are just like a family. And you know many of these ladies too. And so we are able to rely on each other, give each other advice. When I was earlier in my medical transition, that was obviously very crucial and very handy. And then when we sit around and talk about the one the one big area that we just can't seem to figure out, and we would like to stop trying to figure out, is whether it's for personal gain or for societal gain, cis men getting with the program overall of being able to recognize trans people, but trans women in particular.
But don't you find though that very issue, because I know exactly, because I'm a Black trans woman, so I know exactly what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm at this point with this conversation where, yes, it is a lot. The violence that happens against Black trans women is 90-something% at the hands of Black men.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about, though, the fact that I know that this is going to be so hard to approach, but like,
walk it tight,
girl, because let me tell you something, when it comes to holding accountability for folks, the one group that seems to wiggle out of this accountability conversation with me is cis Black women. And it's interesting because, you know what I mean? Because it's interesting because they don't understand that there are so many different sides to this. And the sides are, yes, there are Black men who are the ones at the hands killing us. But but the reality is, in my lived experience, if I were to go to a club or if I'm in the public or what have you, we already have and are in relationship with men, like privately, obviously. So if I'm coming to a space, he don't need you to
sound the alarm.
Set off the alarm in the whole building that I'm a trans woman. Be careful, I'm a trans woman. And then they don't want to own the fact that you participating in this transphobia, outing people, doing all this stuff is contributing to the violence that we experience. So can you talk about sort of the both side of that? Because listen, I think we all need to take responsibility. As trans women, we need to take a certain responsibility just to be able to protect ourselves and the way we love ourselves, who we invite into our personal space, all kind of things. So there's a conversation that we're going to have, we have amongst trans women, but there's a conversation and responsibility to be taken from Black cis men who are, participating in the violence, and Black cis women who are participating in other ways in the violence.
Right. I look at it the same way that so many people, cis men and women alike, participate in perpetuating patriarchy and misogyny. And this is just another brand of that, I think. And sometimes trans women are included in that. There have been so many moments, and I'm just going to be very real here. There have been moments, that early on in my transition, I wasn't accepted, and probably might still not be, because I still claim drag as my number one coin maker. There's lots of trans women who just don't see that, and are like, you're basically a man. And I think that might be cute for them to feel better about themselves and feel more passable, or whatever the word we were going to use. But, ultimately I think that's damaging to themselves. If there's a trans woman around other people, cis people that are like, oh, I don't associate with her because she looks like a man, that ultimately is going to really set the standard so tight and so narrow that other trans women may not be able to get through behind you. And then you're alone.
But listen to what you're saying. Exactly what you're saying is it addresses cis women too.
Yeah, I'm about to say it. I just wanted to say that, get that out of the way. But I remember I talked about, and I actually talked about this on Drag Race. I got beat up in high school by the basketball. I was a basketball cheerleading captain, and the basketball team beat me up, did me a body slam and everything because of a rumor that it's not a rumor, because it wasn't a rumor, because they found out that I thought the captain of the basketball team, the star basketball player, was cute. I said he was cute because he was fine. I'm sorry, he was cute. And but who asked me that? One of the other cheerleaders who I was with, I don't know why we were all sitting around cutting class, but we were sitting around, and she was like, oh, do you think he's cute? And I was like, oh yeah, girl. And this is me thinking, oh, here I am with one of the girls.
Talking to a girlfriend. Yes.
And
yes.
And then she goes, and not an hour later at lunch is telling him, oh, look at that. Look what you're going to do, and got him egged on to the point where in front of the other boys, he felt like he had to do something. And the only thing for him to do was violence. And if she had never done, she could have asked me if I thought it was cute, and we would have kikied, and that would have been it. She didn't have to go and tell him. The only reason she went and told him right after we talked was to cause trouble. And that's what you're talking about.
Listen, not just, let's dive down into it. Not just cause trouble. She did that to watch him perform masculinity.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What a lot of the cis women aren't picking up on is that these men are performing for you. Because so many cis women, it's performing. Because so many of the cis women are telling them, are trying to tell them they're gay if they are attracted to trans women, separating themselves from what is a trans woman. But in the reality, they're performing this masculine, and that they live in a society where their masculinity is on watch. So you are egging this on when you want them. Listen, I get it. Okay, it's cute when maybe two boys is fighting over you. I've been there. Yeah, no, I've been there with two, dudes wanting to fight over Miss Ross. I mean, sorry, that's cute. And sometimes you hear a little, whatever. Listen, I'd rather have them watch football or basketball or something, and the testosterone in the air. I just love it when they watching sports and doing all that kind of stuff. But to have them perform their masculinity by beating up on someone and then want to hide your hand as if you had nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. Girl,
it's the insidious nature of I really do think transphobia, while it is very specific and has and is very deadly, it is I believe it seems to be clear that it's another version of misogyny, which they already know how to do that. Misogyny and the patriarchy are best friends. And they know they're already in that system. They're already in that frame of mind. And so they would do that same thing to another Black woman. They would do that same thing, that's just how we operate, unfortunately. And it's not just cis Black women that do it, but when we're talking about the Black trans women who are murdered, and usually by people we know, many times by our intimate partners, you're right. They're not really trans. It is transphobia that plays into it, but these men are not afraid of trans women. They're lying with us in our houses, in our beds.
They're not afraid. Absolutely.
They're not afraid. They know exactly what is up, but they just don't want anybody else to know. And it's like they would, I guess they would rather kill us than have somebody else know.
So my last question for you is, what are, in a hopeful tone, I guess, what would you like to see? In order for us to see a stop to this violence against trans women, what would you like to see from our society? What kind of actions would you like to see?
I think, that, on the bigger end, it sounds kind of kumbaya to say equality and acceptance, but those are obviously what we want. I do think one thing that's really attainable and something that at least people can understand, so it feels more tangible, is kind of going the distance and really gaining an understanding and acceptance among us all of not only trans people, but non-binary people, people who are pansexual and bisexual, and not that sexuality and gender are the same thing, but having an understanding of different sexual identities, whether they're gender related or sexually, I think will make space for the rest of us, right? That's what I think. And so I do think it's important that everyone, because I've seen in some circles, we know that there has been acceptance of, let's say, trans men or trans women, if they're, quote, passable and fit into the very narrow idea
or lesbians who are able to fit into the culture. Yes,
exactly. But there are people who can't and don't even want to fit into that. And so if we can make space for those people, then I think it automatically means there's going to be space for everyone, including cis people, because the freedom for the trans people and the non-binary people means that we're all free to express our gender in a way that we see fit, rather than what they tell us,
I think we don't have to be so black and white when it comes down to, I know that when it comes to being trans, black people, well, not all black people, but I just, there's a lot of folks in our community that feel like you're successful transition if you quote unquote pass, you're successful if you do this, or you shouldn't do that if you're not doing that. Or just the fact that if they see someone that's non-binary, they see that as a failure instead of seeing that as that's actually just who I am. I'm non-binary. I'm not trying to be on this side or that side. So I just really appreciate you for always using your voice and always using your platform. I know that, again, our counterparts sometimes don't always have to put on the capes that we have to put on as Black trans women. So I just want to say to you, if I haven't said it before, and I know I have, I'm going to just say it right now. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, Sister Ross, thank you so much. Likewise. I'm in awe of you every single moment that I'm able to behold what you put out and then see what you give to everyone else. I think it's just an absolute gift, and they know it.
Thank you.
And so I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Love you, Peppermint. Have a great weekend. Be fierce.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications from radio.com. While you're at it, why don't you check out some of our other great videos.